Okay, good morning. This is Dr. David A. Padgett. This is our World Regional Geography, Section 98A, February 8th, 2021. And today we are going to start off with a recap of the careers in geography lecture that I left off with last week. And so let's get right into that. And so again, as you prepare for Unit Exam A, which I am thinking at the moment will be administered beginning February the 24th. That's where I'm thinking right now. But I will finalize that by Wednesday. So part of your reading assignment for the Unit A exam is this one, Careers in Geography and Geospatial Technology. And so I went through a significant portion of this PowerPoint presentation last week, and I'm just going to finish it up today. From there, we will move on to the the assignment that is due today, and that is a writing assignment. And I'll just read a couple of things that people turned in. Interesting stories or definitions of geography from individuals. And then we will move on to the assignment for this week, which is what is geography? Oh, no, wait. We will then move on to the lecture on map interpretation, and then we'll get into this week's assignment. So last week, we went through this presentation on all of the various ways that geography and geographic information systems is related to various occupations and career choices. So the last three, I didn't get to the last three, but I will focus on those today. So there are many entrepreneurial opportunities associated with geography and geospatial technology. The first one I'm going to talk about is Angela Allen's money map. Now, this article is dated. It's from Essence Magazine about 20 years ago. But it will illustrate what's important about understanding geography and mapping. We have to understand how to think spatially. And so that's the most important part of geospatial technology, is understanding how do we think spatially? How can we look at a problem and take a spatial approach to solving it? So again, this article is a little dated, but it just shows you how anybody who has an entrepreneurial spirit and some creativity and ingenuity can utilize cartography and now geographic information systems to start a business. And so this article, again, is called Businesses You Wish You'd Started. And this is Angela Allen's money map. And so Angela Allen, as you can see, she was a journalist. So she was not a geographer. She was not a cartographer, but she traveled a lot. And what you have to understand is that there was a point in time where automatic teller machines, ATMs, were only at banks, or sometimes they were at police stations for obvious reasons. in places where, cities were kind of dangerous. And not all ATMs were on the same network about 20 years ago. So for instance, if you were in Atlanta, your banks might have all been on the most network. And then if you were to move or travel to Washington, D.C., all those ATMs might have been on the Quest network. So if you went from Atlanta to Washington, D.C. with your ATM, your teller card, it wouldn't work. And so you would have to find ATMs that were within your network, uh, ATMs that were in safe places, and so on and so forth. I mean, now there are ATMs in gas stations, they're in the grocery store. It wasn't always that way 20 years ago. It was not like that 20 years ago. And so Angela Allen, who was again a journalist, and here she is. She was 32, so she was into her career in journalism, and she traveled a lot, and she thought, wow, I have a hard time finding ATMs. So she came up with the idea of Angela Allen's money map. Now, this is before MapQuest and Google Maps and all of that. So she was literally a pioneer almost. She did this obviously with paper maps. So she took out a $12,000 loan from her 401k. It shows that it's really a good thing to save your money, because you never know when an opportunity might come about, that you might want to invest in something, maybe a house or a business. And so she took out a $12,000 loan, and she hired a cartographer. So she wasn't a cartographer, but at least she knew enough that she needed to hire somebody that was good at map making. She knew that she wasn't going to be able to do it. And so she buried herself in map books. She attended map making conventions. Yes, there are map making conventions. I used to go to a lot of them before the pandemic. She taught herself the basis of cartography and honed her computer skills to create a workable database. So she surveyed, she did what we call ground truthing now, and she right out of the box, she had great sales. So off of her $12,000 investment, at the end of 2 years, second year in the business, her sales exceeded $100,000. That's a magnificent return on investment. Turning $12,000 to $100,000 just based off of an idea to think spatially about travel and location. Where are these ATMs? She thought, I can't be the only person who's frustrated. Obviously, she was not. So when we move forward closer to today, we see the real power of geographic information systems and geography in commerce. And so fast forward to 2013, and this is an article about a gentleman named Lawrence Griffith. It says here, founder of Sample Saint, Lawrence Griffith uses geolocation technology to send brand messaging to consumers. So geofencing was very new about 8 years ago. And this gentleman, Lawrence Griffith, was right at the forefront. And so if you read this article, you'll notice that there's a graphic that describes how geo fencing works. And you're probably familiar with this now. So here you are. So a customer, you sign up with your smartphone, whether vendor, whether it's AT&T, Verizon, whoever. And so actually your smartphone provider actually makes deals or contracts with companies like Sample Saint. This is before you even buy your phone, okay? When you sign that agreement, you implicitly consent to be tracked by these vendors. And that's called implied consent, right? That's a legal term, implied consent. So once you sign, then that allows for your smartphone to be connected to all of these vendors who then push, I guess now we call them notifications. You push coupons, all kinds of things to remind you to interact with various brands, right? So this is what we call, again, geofencing. And you all are familiar with it now. This is all satellite and based upon GPS, so that wherever you happen to be, if you happen to be somewhere in the vicinity of a business or a store that sells a product that you like, you'll get a notification, right? All of you all are familiar with this, but this is exactly how it works. So you're being tracked. Now, most people don't mind, because if this tracking allows you to save money, then most people don't mind being tracked. I mean, when people were asked, "Do you mind being tracked? It helps you save money." People said, "No, I'm fine with it." Some people are creeped out about it, but most people want to be made privy to sales and coupons for the products that they buy. But this is how the technology works. So what Lawrence Griffith does is he charges, I guess he's in a Save-A-Lot store now. He charges these vendors $170,000 to $500,000 per license, and that's in 2013. Who knows how much this is now? Or he might have, who knows? He might have sold the company. So the company owned by Lawrence Griffith, based upon geofencing, earns from $1 to $5 million every year. And again, this was in 2013. And so this is what we call passive income. So Lawrence Griffith is allowing this technology, this geofencing technology, to earn money for him while he could be doing anything. He could be asleep. He could be fishing, golfing. Meanwhile, his company is making millions and millions of dollars. And so these opportunities are out there for anyone. There are fashion apps. I know some friends of mine who are nail techs, but they're mobile nail techs. And so they use an app, a geolocation app, to connect themselves to customers, because when the nail salons closed last year, women were still trying to get their nails done, even though they weren't going anywhere. But now with these geolocation services apps, the nail techs were able to go to these women's homes, I guess some men too, to do their nails. Also, mobile massage. So I know another friend of mine that owns a mobile massage company, and she has an app, a geolocation based app that connects her with customers. And so this is a very lucrative operation that is based largely upon an idea. So Uber was based upon an idea. Maybe people were tired of trying to catch cabs, and cabs were dirty and messy, and a lot of the cab drivers were very, very rude. And then somebody said, well, let's allow private citizens to use their vehicles as taxi cabs, and then let's see what happens. And we see Uber now has a valuation of close to $50 billion. I think I talked about that last time. And it's all based upon geolocation services. Okay, so last but certainly not least, here are some younger people. I mean, Lawrence Griffith was 63. But here are two gentlemen, two young guys who created Movie Pass. And the way Movie Pass works is that it connects, it works with various theaters to connect movie buffs to films that they might want to see. Now, obviously, during the pandemic, this company might be in trouble, but I don't know. Maybe they were able to pivot. But essentially, the way it would work is if you were a person that went to a lot of movies, I mean, went to the movies. If you paid a monthly fee, then what MoviePass would do is it would send to your mobile device alerts for when movies that you might want to see are in your city or wherever. And then you would get a discount. So instead of paying whatever, $12, $18 a movie, you might be able to go for $12 or less than that per film. And so here it says it's a GPS enabled Movie Pass app so that you can even buy your ticket before you go, no waiting in line. And so just based upon the idea, when this Movie Pass idea was at the idea stage, no real work had been done. They got $5 million in contributions from venture capitalists, including America Online and others. And so $5 million in investments from outside based upon an idea, what that should tell you is that if people are going to invest $5 million in this company based upon an idea, they knew they were going to make more than that back, right? No, this wasn't charity. They weren't, they didn't see these two young guys and say, well, let's just give these two young Black guys a chance. No. This is a Stacy Spikes and Hammett Watt. They didn't just give these two young guys $5 million because they felt sorry for them. No, investors want a return on investment. They saw this GPS enabled app as being potentially very profitable. And so hopefully by perusing this list of geospatial, geography and geospatial technology careers, you have a better sense of what geography is, what geographers do, and maybe what you can do with this technology now that you've been exposed to it formally. Okay, so I'm going to move from here to our next portion of our day, and that is I'm going to look at the results of our most recent assignment and just see if, so you had two assignments. One was to define geography in your own words. And so a lot of you all submitted. So one of your classmates said, the last time I learned about geography was in 10th grade. We learned about world geography and major rivers. In that geography unit, we also learned who stole what land as well. My teacher didn't call it stolen though. To sum it up, geography is learning the history of regions and countries. Very good answer there from that student. I'm gonna read another one from another student who, let's see who we have here. All right, let's see. We have another person's. Okay, another student said, my best definition of geography is the study of the world and the history behind map origins, not only just maps, but the history behind different regions of the world and how throughout time human encounters have changed the perspective of how people learn about the world. Okay, good answer, good answer. So, like I said, in doing this, I just wanted to see, what you all thought about geography. I'm going to read a couple more before we move on. And then I'll make another point. Let's see, one more. You read one more here. I already read that one. That one, read that one. Let's see. Just pick one at random here. Oh. Okay, here's another one. Geography. In my own words, geography is the study of land. Back in high school, I took a geography class, and the majority of things we did were related to a map and the land and places located on the map. I think it is also looking at maps and studying land and its features as who lives there and what grows there. So, very good. Okay, so that first assignment, of course, is due today, but I'll talk about that in a minute. The second assignment was to share a memorable experience with maps or mapping. And so let's see. Okay, so here's a student's answer. It says memorable events with maps. A few years ago, my mother was taking me to an event downtown. We didn't have great phones at the time, so we had to find my internship event old school, not too old school, where we pulled out a giant map of the US, but we did have to print out the directions. If we had Google Maps at the time, maybe the trip would have gone smoother. We live in Atlanta, so there's almost always traffic. And unlike Google Maps, printed directions don't update roadblocks. We missed our exit multiple terms, ended up lost. I wasn't that late, but definitely frustrated. That was the last time we used printed directions. Very interesting story there. However, do not discount the use of paper maps. That is because you will be in a situation like this one where your phone is not connected. Maybe you don't have electricity. In an event where there's a disaster, say a hurricane, tornado, God forbid, and electricity is knocked out, then you're not going to be able to use your mobile device. You'll have to have a paper map if you're trying to find your way to a Red Cross shelter, or if someone's injured and you're trying to find your way to a hospital and you don't happen to have electricity in times of disaster, or if you're in a car accident and your phone is damaged or destroyed in the accident, we still need to know how to read paper maps, even though this was kind of a funny story. But paper maps are still important. So hopefully, well, not hopefully, you will learn how to interpret print maps during this class at some point. Okay, let's read let's find another response. I'll have to read that one later. Let's see. This one is called Mapping Experience. The most memorable experience I have had when it comes to mapping was at Disney World parks, Epcot / Magic Kingdom. If you know anything about Disney World and its parks, they're ginormous and very hard to navigate if you've never been there before. So there is either a paper map option or digital option. The digital option would be the best choice to navigate the park for any first timers instead of the paper option, just because of all the additional features that come with the app. My family, on the other hand, decided to go with the very confusing paper option for the majority of the trip. And as it turns out, we were lost and irritated for most of our time at the parks. Learning how to navigate the paper map was extremely difficult and not worth the time. Eventually, we made the switch to the digital option and afterwards enjoyed the rest of our trip at Disney. Okay, that was interesting story there. But again, in spite of the frustration you might have with paper maps, there are many times when you will not have access to electricity, but obviously the digital maps, yes, with the features such as the Waze feature that can notify us of traffic jams and all those types of things, and also the voice navigation feature where the voice says turn left, turn right at the light, turn right, and it just takes you directly to where you want to go. However, you still really need to familiarize yourself with your location. Um, let's see. I have one person here while let me see. I'm going to pause the recording for just a second. Okay, back to recording again. Let's see. So I'm going to go down. Okay, here's another student. Okay, this one is called My Experience. Having a father that's his own operator in trucking, I have been in all 48 states with my dad. When I was around the age of 9, I noticed my dad would never use a GPS. He would know the exits by heart. I asked my dad, how do you know all these highways and turns? He handed me a huge map bigger than my body of each state's highways with mile markers. He asked me to find our exact location with a couple of hints. I still couldn't find it. Later that day, when he had time, he broke down how to use the map and how to find your exact location on a map. He told me to never trust a GPS because they could sometimes be misleading. I rarely use his advice with maps, but I do use his other advice by looking at highway mile markers and traffic signs. In case my phone dies when I'm traveling, I can always look at the traffic signs. That's a very good, very interesting story. But very interesting point. If you have ever broken down on a highway, hope it never happens to you, you should pay attention to those mile markers, because when the tow truck or emergency responders or whomever are trying to find you, the first thing they ask you is which mile marker are you near? And if you aren't paying attention, they have no way of knowing where you are. If you're not paying attention to which exits, just make a mental note of which exit you pass by, just in case you get a flat tire, something happens. So it is still a very good idea to do that. Pay attention to your surroundings. Very important in terms of cartography. I'm going to do a screen share just on that note and find some articles that speak to exactly what that student was talking about. GPS misleading. Yeah, GPS, a fatally misleading travel companion. Yeah, so here's a story about some tourists who were just relying completely upon GPS and got lost and were unable to find their way back. It says here they were stranded for 3 days in Death Valley after following the GPS. And so again, you can't always rely upon GPS or technology. Knowing how to read paper maps is another important skill. Try to find a story from Denver. Yeah. So here's one that's more recent. Nearly 100 drivers followed a Google Maps detour to a dead end. And so this happened in Colorado a couple of years ago, where all these people were following Google Maps, I guess, trying to get to the airport. Oh, great. Oh, here it is. I can probably find a better source for this map, for this story than that. Here's CNN. Okay, here we go, CNN. So 100 drivers were following Google Maps. You know, sometimes Google Maps sends you on a detour, and this is where they wound up, all wound up on this dirt road somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Colorado, because Google Maps told them that that was the quickest way, I believe, to get out of a traffic jam. And so I know exactly where this is in Denver. Not where this is, but I know where Pena Boulevard is in Denver. And so you see what happens to all these people that, you know, they thought it was a detour. They relied completely on Google Maps, and they wound up getting completely stuck in this ditch here. And so I think I can probably go to images and get more. Well, it doesn't go to that story. But here's the same story, maybe more pictures. But this is, yeah, here the people are stuck in the mud, Google Maps, GPS. So again, we have to be aware of our surroundings. And so, whoops, didn't mean to do that. So I'm going to stop my share for a moment. So you all did a fairly good job with this assignment, those of you who turned it in. I did extend the deadline. Go here, back to my share. Okay, so I did extend the deadline on this assignment to today. It was due last week, but because we had about 15 people add the class last week, I extended the deadline. It looks like most of you all have submitted essays or to writing assignment 1 and writing assignment 2. And again, I implore upon you, if you have not done so yet, to read the syllabus and the course rules. And you should make note of the fact that, again, every assignment in here has a built-in grace period. So of 12 hours. So if for every 12 hours you turn in an assignment late, you lose 1 point. Excuse me, for up to 5 days. After 5 days, I can't give you any more than 5 days. Each assignment is worth about 25 points. I know these two are worth 25 points each. So if you turn the assignment in 24 hours and 1 minute late, you could still possibly get an A by getting a 23 out of 25. Okay, so in other words, just be aware of that. Don't see a deadline and decide, oh, well, I guess it's too late. I'm not going to do that assignment. I'm going to get a 0. No. Don't do that. Turn in late, a couple days late, get the points. Okay, that's the main thing. We know that there are a lot of things happening during this pandemic that might cause us to miss deadlines. So I've built in a grace period. I think is really reasonable for no matter what happens to you during this time. So just be aware of that. So for those of you who have not turned in writing assignment 1 or writing assignment 2, please do. You have plenty of time. I backed up the deadline for those of you who added late. And this goes for, well, not all assignments will be pushed back, just this one because of the late ads. But you do have the grace period on every assignment in this class. Okay, so moving forward, I'm going to get us into the next portion of our discussion or lecture, and that is getting us into what we call map interpretation basics. So now we're segueing into map interpretation basics, or the basics of how to read maps, which was pointed out several times during today's reading of the assignments that were turned in for writing assignment 2. But I'm going to start off with my own anecdote for understanding map directions. So I'm going to put this up first, and next we are going to start off with this map interpretation basics reading assignment, which you hopefully have read. And so, of course, you should make note of the various vocabulary words: latitude, longitude, cartographer. We'll get into some of this other material next, but here are some of the very important aspects of map interpretation. Time is very important. We've already talked about how the world is dynamic, and a map is just a snapshot of the world in time. And after that map is made, time keeps going. And so we know that when we look at a Google map, sometimes those maps aren't up to date. And that is because time doesn't stop. The map is just a snapshot in time. So we have to be very, very aware of the date that a map was made, so that we know whether we're looking in close to real time or maybe a long time ago. Location we'll talk about in more greater detail later on. But right now we're going to talk about directional orientation. So how do we find our directions on a map, whether it's a paper map or a digital map? And this is very important. I mean, the main reason for using a map is for navigation. Okay, and so if we don't understand directional orientation, then the map will do us no good. So first, I'm going to give you a couple brief pointers before I get into my anecdote. Pointer number one is that if you're looking at a map, in most cases, if there is no north arrow, the first thing you should do is look for the north arrow. If there is no north arrow visible on the map, then you can assume that the top of the map is north, but that's not always true. Okay, so this is where you have to be aware of your surroundings. Now, let's say there is a north arrow. If you're looking at a map and there is a north arrow, then if you're facing the map, okay, west is to your left, east is to your right. Or if you're outside and you're facing north, okay, and you know which direction is north, west is to your left, east is to your right. Let me illustrate that very quickly with Google Maps. I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna go to Google Maps, and I'm gonna go to some place that maybe, I don't know, some of you might not have been to campus yet, but we're gonna go to Tennessee State University. And here we are on TSU's campus. So there's the stadium. Don't we all miss being here? But if you notice that on this Google map, that, okay, I guess we have to assume that north is towards the top of the screen. And so as we zoom out, notice that if we're facing north and we go to the left, of course, that's going west. And eventually you'll get, Memphis is to the west of Nashville and so on and so forth. and east is to the right. So we'll Cookville, Knoxville, and eventually Charlotte, this to the east would be to your right if you're facing north, or if the map that you're looking at has north at the top of the page. So that's just one simple way to find your direction on the map. Of course, south is the opposite direction from north. I thought that's pretty obvious. Okay, so to illustrate the point, just have a brief anecdote that will show you the importance of understanding the lay of the land in maps. So years ago, I was living in, I had just moved to Cleveland, Ohio. Had never lived there before, never been there before. Just like when some of you might have moved to Nashville and been at Tennessee State University and you didn't know where anything was in Nashville. You barely knew your way around campus. That's the same way I felt when I went to Cleveland. I went to Cleveland to work. And so it just so happened that I found out that the Dance Theater of Harlem was performing at the Playhouse Square Center. And so if you've never heard of the Dance Theater of Harlem, you should go at some, well, I don't know, who knows when the next time we'll be able to go to the theater. That's one of the things we're missing. But the Dance Theater of Harlem is one of the top dance companies in the world, black or white. And so probably, unfortunately, they're not performing. Well, it says they're still teaching, but unfortunately, they're not performing. But anyway, so I found out that the Dance Theater of Harlem was performing in Cleveland. And so one of the one of the things that you have to know about going to the Dance Theater of Harlem is that you cannot get there late. You cannot be late. If you're late, it doesn't matter how much you pay for those tickets, you will not get in. They'll close the door, tell you, sorry, you can't get in. Come see us the next time the Dance Theater of Harlem is in town. And the tickets can be really, really expensive, like over $100 per ticket for good seats, at least $100 per ticket. So I didn't want to be late. I said, we're not going to be late because we want to actually see the show. So this was in 1998. So this was before Google Maps, before all of this, even before selective availability was turned off with GPS. So remember, the GPS signal was scrambled until the year 2000. So this was in 1998. So all I had were these paper maps, right? And I looked at the paper maps that came with the tickets in the mail. So notice here we have north arrow, west, east, and south on this map. There's a Playhouse Square Theater. And then on the same playbill, on the same packet, was another map, which is at a smaller scale map. It's zoomed out. So the Playhouse Square Theater was represented by a point symbol, that P. So I was trying to navigate and I said, okay, but then I noticed something that was strange. I noticed that here's Euclid Avenue. And on this map, Euclid Avenue runs basically from the southwest to the northeast. I said, okay. Then I looked on this map and Euclid Avenue was running in the opposite direction from northwest to southeast. And I said, well, wait a minute. One of these maps is incorrect. And I had to figure it out because if we got lost and we got to the theater late, it would be a waste of money. So I had to figure out which one of these maps was the correct one, which took me back into, somebody mentioned old school, took me back into some old school hip hop. Now, there was a group from Cleveland that was actually discovered by Eazy-E. You all don't know about this group. They were called Bone Thugs and Harmony. This was a long time ago, right? Bone Thugs and Harmony was a rap group from Cleveland. And they had an album out. This is when they were still doing albums or CDs. It was called E99 Eternal. Now, it was dedicated to Eazy-E, but the E99 actually stood for East 99th Street, which was where these guys grew up in Cleveland. So that told me that the farther that we go east in Cleveland, the higher the street numbers are, right? So if we look at this map, notice that we have going east, here's 6th, 9th, 12th, 13th, 30th. And if you keep going, you end up way over deep in the hood in Cleveland around 99th Street, right? So I knew this map was the correct one. This map was wrong because notice on this map, as we go towards the east, the streets actually get lower. So here's 18, 17, 13, 12, right? Going towards the east, these street numbers should not get lower. So I knew that this particular map was the wrong one. Used this map, got to the theater, enjoyed the show, everybody was happy. So it's important that we understand that human beings make maps and human beings also make mistakes. And so anytime you read a map or look at a map, understand that there was a person that made that map who might not have taken a cartography class, might not have taken a geography class. And obviously whoever made this map just slapped this north arrow on there without paying any attention to what was here, right? They just slapped it on there, right? Slapping a north arrow on a map does not make north north. North has to be actual north, based upon human observations of the earth. So I thought I'd just share that story with you just to hammer home the point of directional orientation in mapping and how it's important that we understand how to interpret directions. Okay, so I've talked about dates, directional orientation. Let's talk about map symbols. Now, there are 3 kinds of map symbols. There are point symbols, line symbols, and area symbols. Okay, a point symbol was just like the one that I showed you on this map. A point symbol is simply a point. So notice that this P on this map is a point symbol that represents the location of the Playhouse Square Theater in Cleveland. That P is a point symbol. If I pull up another map, let's see if I go to this map, Google Maps, another example of a point symbol is this one. The Nashville International Airport is represented by that airplane teardrop. That's a point symbol. Let's see if I can find this symbol here is a point symbol that represents where the Nashville Zoo is. So each one of these teardrops is essentially a point symbol on this map. Now, line symbols are not lines such as we define them in geometry. So geometry, geo, earth, meter, to measure. Geometry means to measure the earth. Geography means to describe the earth. So geometry, in geometry, a line is the shortest distance between 2 points. In geography, a line symbol can be like this, a highway or one of these roads, or if we go over here to Radnor Lake State Park, these line symbols represent trails, hiking trails in Radnor Lake State Park. So a line symbol in geography is not necessarily a straight line. It could be this river here leading to Radnor Lake State Park. And then last but not least, there are what we call area symbols. Now, there are two types of area symbols. There are color area symbols and there are texture area symbols. A color area symbol is, for example, this green color that represents probably a forested area. And then blue is obviously surface water. Those are different kinds of color area symbols. And a texture area symbol, let's see if I can find another map here. Let's see if I can, images. Okay, so if you notice, this map appears to have the three-dimensional imagery of this mountain range. It almost appears to come out of the page. That's called a texture area symbol. It makes it seem as if you rubbed your hand across this map, you could actually feel the mountain range. That's a texture area symbol. So those are three types of map symbols: point symbols, line symbols, and area symbols. And so there are various types of point, line, and area symbols, specifically line symbols, that are described here as among your vocabulary words to know. So there are topographic lines. Topographic lines connect points of equal elevation above mean sea level. And so the most common type of topographic map is a U.S. Geological Survey topographic map. And so here they are. And if you notice, if I click on this map, notice that these line symbols on the map represent elevation above mean sea level. Let me try to find a better example so you can actually see. And so topographic maps are maps of elevation above mean sea level represented by lines. Sometimes these topographic lines are also called contour lines. And so here is a very good illustration of how to read a topographic map. And so as you can see, each labeled line is, in this case, the number of feet above mean sea level at various points. So what you're looking at here is a plan view or an aerial view of a mountain represented on a map. And here's the mountain itself, or the hill itself. And so we go from presumably 0 feet above mean sea level, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So the contour interval on this map is 10 feet. So each one of these lines is 10 feet above mean sea level. And so those are also a type of line symbol. Now, another type of line symbol is an isobar. An isobar connects points of equal barometric pressure. That's very important if you're looking at a weather map. Isotherms connect points of equal temperature. So for isotherms, excuse me, let's go here. You can go into the textbook. Into the textbook here. And I'll just show you quickly perhaps how to navigate the textbook. So we're looking for isotherms. So one way is to use a search bar for specific terms you're trying to find, isotherms. And here it is, isotherms joining places of equal temperature. Click there. And here's a map of isotherms from the textbook. This is in chapter 2. And if you notice, this is a map of the world's average temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit and Celsius. And so here it is the color area symbol representing the part of the Earth where the average sea level temperature is about 77 degrees Fahrenheit or 25 degrees Celsius. So of course, at the upper limit, this line, this isotherm here represents 25 degrees Celsius, as does this line here in the southern hemisphere, represents temperatures at 25 degrees Celsius. Now, of course, when we go towards the poles, now we move to this pink area, which is from 15 to 25 degrees Celsius. And so this line here is probably 15 degrees Celsius, then 25 degrees Celsius is in that area. So this is a combined color and line symbol map, obviously. So we have isotherms on this map representing points of equal temperature, and then we have the color area symbol representing parts of the Earth that average specific temperatures throughout the year. Now, here is a map that includes isohyads. And so isohyads are lines that connect points of equal precipitation. And so that's what's on this map, showing where we have various levels of precipitation on average on Earth. And so you should familiarize yourselves with these terms. And also, we've talked about map direction. I've mentioned absolute location here several times. Absolute location is a point on Earth defined by latitude and longitude. So we have talked about that a little bit more. The next time we'll get into the rest of the vocabulary words. So we have talked about map symbols, but we'll get into some of the rest of these terms later on. We have already talked about GIS, remote sensing, and GPS. But we'll get to the other vocabulary words later. Also, you should take a look at the information at this link, and you'll probably have to copy and paste this link into a new browser, just like I'm doing here. And so a lot of the terminology that you'll need for unit exam A is discussed here: latitude, longitude, physical and human geography. Here's some more vocabulary words: geomorphology, biogeography, climatology, and so on and so forth. Cartography, GPS, remote sensing, GIS. So this is just a good reference that I'll go into in greater detail next time for you to understand in greater detail map interpretation, map symbols, and so on and so forth. And so we will address that content next time. But for now, I want to make you aware of this week's writing assignment. And so you have, again, you should expect to have at least one writing assignment every week. This is the writing assignment for this week. Writing assignment 3, what is geography? And so pay attention to both posts related to this assignment. I'll go to the assignment itself. So here's the writing assignment, what is geography? So the instructions take you to peruse the articles found under writing assignment 3. So if you go here, World Regional Geography, there is a second link, and the second link goes to the list of articles. So here are the articles that are associated with this assignment, and there are several of them. And it said instructions read, peruse the articles, examine the history of geography timeline, explore the careers in geography and geospatial technology PowerPoint presentation. There's also a short video called Explore Your World, GIS and Education. That's especially for those of you planning on being teachers. Then you will write a 600 or more word essay per items 1 to 5 below. So just as a point of information, anytime I ask you to write an essay in here, take that number as a minimum, not an exact number to be met or a maximum, certainly not a maximum. So when I say write a 600 word essay in my class, that's the least number of words I should see. That's the bare minimum. Okay, that's why I have that plus sign there. Write a 600 or more word essay per items 1 through 5 below. In your essay, do you have a better idea of what geography is now that you've read these articles, et cetera, et cetera? The second part of your essay, using examples from at least 5 of the articles, describe how geography is important in terms of your daily life. So you should make note of at least 5 of the articles. You can either use a bibliography, a works cited list, or you can just mention the article in the text of your essay. You know, I read the article by Kay Dobson that said, quote, blah, 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 blah. This gave me a much better idea of what geography is because on and on and on, okay? Next, using examples from the articles, describe ways in which geography may be related to your career plans. So I've asked all of you, what are your career plans? We have veterinarian, animator, law, whatever, psychiatry. I've already mentioned several instances in here where your major may be related to geography, but you have to find that within the articles that you see there posted. Then you're required to properly cite all the articles you referenced for your essay. If you do not know how to do a citation, let me know. I will point you in the direction. Then, of course, this is due next Monday. You have plenty of time. In the meantime, please, if you have any questions, ask before you turn your work in. If you want to submit a draft, this is what I would strongly advise you to do. First, get started on this early. Don't wait till next Monday to start writing it. You know, get started early. Maybe by Wednesday, you might say, Dr. Padgett, I have a draft of my work I'd like you to look at. Would you mind taking a look at it and give me a couple of days? I mean, if you want to send me a draft, send me a draft maybe Friday. If the work is due on Monday, don't send me a draft Sunday night at 11 o'clock at night. Okay, now I might actually see it. Most likely I won't, but I strongly advise you to let me look at your work before you turn it in, because I might look at it and say, wow, this is awful. Here's how you can fix this so you cannot get the F I was going to give you if you turned it in like this. Or I might say, oh, this is great. Go ahead and turn it in. So you know that you no longer have to stress over it. You can turn it into the Dropbox and you'll probably get an A. So that's the assignment for this week. Looks like I have a new person I see on the list. Who is Mrs. Brianna?
I'm sorry, that's my email name. Brianna McCullough.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you're McCullough. Okay. And let me go back. So we're really at the end of our time. So thank you very much for everyone for attending. And if you're not attending, please watch this recording. And if you have any questions, get a hold of me immediately. Do not hesitate to get a hold of me. That's why I'm here. I'm not here to just teach this class and then go away until the next class. But the next class where we meet live will be Wednesday. If you can come, great. If not, watch the recording and have questions about the assignment as soon as they come to mind. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop recording.